The Godfather isn't just one of the greatest films of all time. It was a battle to make from start to finish. The studio wanted Pacino out, then one scene changed everything. Real mobsters showed up on set. And one actor, he didn't need to study how the mob operated, because he'd already lived it. So drop whatever you're doing, grab a cannoli, and stick around. These 20 weird facts will make you see The Godfather in a whole new light. Number 1. The studio almost replaced Pacino. When Francis Ford Coppola cast Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, Paramount wasn't just skeptical. They were convinced he was the wrong choice. They pushed for bigger stars: Robert Redford, Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, even Ryan O'Neal. Early footage didn't help. Pacino's performance was called too quiet, and executives questioned whether he had the charisma to carry the role. Just a week into filming, Coppola reportedly told Pacino, "You're not cutting it," and urged him to watch the dailies and prove himself. Then came the restaurant scene, the moment Michael Corleone truly comes into focus. The tension, the stillness, the cold, quiet transformation. When the studio saw that footage, everything changed. From that point on, no one questioned Pacino's place in the film again. Number 2. Pacino sprained his ankle during the restaurant scene. That restaurant scene didn't just save Pacino's job. It left him limping off set in real pain. During the getaway, he twisted his ankle, a painful mistake made more stressful by how exposed he already felt on set. He didn't tell anyone, afraid the studio would use it as another excuse to fire him. In his memoir, Sonny Boy, Pacino described the pressure this way: "He felt unwanted, like an underling. The studio doubted him." He wrote that the experience felt like prison. When the ankle went out, the injury felt almost like a blessing. He later reflected, "Oh God, you're saving me. I don't have to do this picture anymore." But, like Michael Corleone, he kept moving forward, without saying a word. Number 3. Coppola was almost fired, repeatedly. While Pacino was pushing through the pressure and even a sprained ankle, Francis Ford Coppola was facing his own battle behind the camera. Studio executives hated the early footage. They thought the film was too slow, too dark, and too quiet. More than once, they seriously considered replacing him with another director. The one thing that kept Coppola in the chair? That same restaurant scene. The pacing, the lighting, the slow burn tension before the shot. It proved to the studio that Coppola knew exactly what he was doing. It didn't remove their doubts entirely, but it was enough to keep Coppola in the director's chair. Number 4. It was almost set in the 1970s. There was yet another massive fight behind the camera, one that nearly rewrote the entire story. Paramount wanted to modernize the film. They proposed setting The Godfather in the 1970s, shooting in Kansas City, using studio backlots to save money. To the studio, it made perfect sense. Modern cars, no period costumes, lower costs. But when Coppola came on board, he pushed back hard. The story had to remain in post-World War II New York, where Michael Corleone's Marine Corps passed. The rise of corporate America and the weight of immigrant identity all felt essential. It became one of their earliest and fiercest battles. Coppola held firm and eventually won. The period setting stayed. And the film's timeless atmosphere was born. Number 5. Brando had to audition in secret. Casting Don Vito Corleone wasn't easy. Paramount executives flat out refused to hire Marlon Brando. They saw him as washed up, unpredictable, and box office poison. Coppola begged them to reconsider. The studio eventually agreed, but only if Brando passed a screen test. So Coppola visited Brando at home and filmed him informally, without telling him it was for the studio. Brando slicked back his hair with shoe polish, stuffed Kleenex into his cheeks, and rolled up his collar. What he created wasn't just a character, it was Don Corleone, fully formed. The tape stunned the executives. They gave in, but with conditions. Brando had to take a low salary, post a bond in case of trouble, and promise not to disrupt the production. Later, instead of using cotton or tissues, Brando wore a custom-made dental prosthetic, which gave him that now iconic bulldog look and muffled voice. That quiet improvised transformation changed everything, and gave the film its legendary core. Number 6. Orson Welles begged for the role. Legendary actor and filmmaker Orson Welles wanted to play Don Vito Corleone almost as much as Coppola wanted Brando. He reportedly offered to lose weight to fit the role, even lobbying directly for the part. On paper, it seemed like a perfect match. Welles had gravitas, he had presence, but Coppola was already convinced Marlon Brando was the only man who could embody the character. So despite Welles's plea and willingness to make himself smaller, Coppola turned him down. He believed Brando, not Welles, was the soul of Don Corleone. And in the end, Coppola was vindicated. Number 7. Brando refused to learn his lines. Brando didn't memorize most of his dialogue for The Godfather. He insisted on reading his lines off cue cards, sometimes taped to walls or hidden behind lamps, and even stuck to Robert Duvall's chest for him to read on camera, sometimes behind Duvall's back. When crew members asked why he needed the cards, Brando simply said, "Because I can read them that way." He believed true realism came from improvisation. Cue cards let him react in the moment, giving the performance spontaneity, something he felt rote memorization couldn't deliver. On set, it became part of the routine. Cards taped to walls, hidden on props, or held just off camera. Co-stars and crew found it quirky, but Coppola welcomed it, because despite the unconventional method, it gave life to Don Corleone in a way no rehearsal could match. Number 8. Brando, Duvall, and Caan mooned each other on set. During the long tense days of filming The Godfather, the cast found an unusual way to blow off steam. Robert Duvall dared James Caan to moon Marlon Brando from a car window, and that moment sparked a full-blown prank war on set. Brando, the ultimate prankster, didn't hesitate to escalate. While cameras were being set up for the wedding scene, he mooned nearly 500 extras gathered on set, earning himself the self-awarded title of Mighty Moon King. Caan and Duvall joined the fun, with more mooning and elaborate pranks throughout the scene rehearsals and filming. It was childish, irreverent, and exactly the creative tension valve the cast needed. As Duvall later reflected, this playful chaos helped relax everyone and made the film feel more alive. Number 9. The studio got an offer they couldn't refuse. Even before The Godfather began filming, the real mafia got involved. Mob boss Joseph Colombo, head of the Italian-American Civil Rights League, objected to how the film portrayed Italian Americans. He demanded the removal of the words mafia and Cosa Nostra from the script. And Albert Ruddy, the film's producer, agreed. Ruddy met with Colombo personally, promised to cut the language, and even allowed the League to review the dialogue. He also offered to support one of their community charities. The deal worked, on paper. Colombo gave his public approval and even allowed some of his men to appear as extras, but the trouble didn't stop there. Even after the agreement, bomb threats hit Paramount's New York offices, twice. Ruddy's car was tailed by mysterious vehicles, and after he switched cars with his secretary, his original car was found riddled with bullet holes. The threats got so serious that Ruddy received menacing phone calls, warning him to abandon the production. At one point, Paramount actually removed Ruddy from the film, angry that he had struck the deal without their approval. But director Francis Ford Coppola refused to continue without him. Ruddy was brought back, and the film moved forward, with the mob quietly watching from the sidelines. Number 10. Coppola cast a real mob enforcer, and it worked. The actor who played Luca Brasi wasn't your typical Hollywood hire. He was played by Lenny Montana, a 6'6" ex-wrestler who once worked as an enforcer and arsonist for the Colombo crime family. Montana had no formal acting experience, and filming his big speech for the Don left him visibly shaking. He stumbled over his words, hesitated, then tried again. Coppola noticed the raw anxiety and decided to lean into it. He added a rehearsal scene of Brasi practicing his speech in the hallway, explaining the nerves and making it feel like part of the story. In that moment, Brasi's jitters didn't end the scene. They enhanced it. Montana's real-life tension became one of The Godfather's most human and memorable moments. Number 11. One of the most famous lines was ad-libbed. One of The Godfather's most famous lines wasn't in the script. Richard Castellano, who played Peter Clemenza, simply improvised it, and history was made. The original line in the script was just, "Leave the gun." Then his wife, Ardell Sheridan, suggested he add, "Take the cannolis." That tiny addition turned it into a legend. It humanized a moment of cold execution with one small gesture. The unexpected levity beneath the chaos became one of cinema's most quoted lines. Number 12. One of the highest-paid actors wasn't who you'd expect. Richard Castellano didn't just improvise one of the film's most famous lines. He also came in with star power and a hefty paycheck. By the time The Godfather rolled around, Castellano had already earned an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in the 1970 film Lovers and Other Strangers, a critically acclaimed hit that established him as a rising star. That reputation and star billing translated into good money. He earned around $50,000 for playing Peter Clemenza, more than Al Pacino and several other cast members, though still less than Brando's $250,000 plus back-end profits. He also had unusual influence on script decisions. Castellano secured script approval over his own dialogue, ensuring Clemenza sounded authentic, right down to the Italian-American swagger. Number 13. When Sonny Broke the Rules and the co-star. James Caan brought more than heat to the role of Sonny Corleone. He brought chaos. On camera, one of his most iconic moments was completely unscripted. In the middle of a tense confrontation with an FBI photographer, Caan grabbed the camera and smashed it to the ground. Then, in a gesture from the neighborhood, he pulled out 2 bills and dropped them at the man's feet. An ad-libbed show of dominance followed by pay up the debt dignity. But the intensity didn't end there. On set, Caan's feud with his on-screen brother-in-law, actor Gianni Russo, was real, and things got messy during the big beating scene. They'd rehearsed it for a day and a half, but when the cameras rolled, Caan took it too far. According to Russo, the improvisation included a broom handle strike to the head, a kick that lifted him off the ground, and even hand-biting. He later said Caan cracked 2 ribs and chipped his elbow, and Russo never complained. It was his first film role, and he didn't want to rock the boat. But he was once quoted as saying, "Jimmy and I are not friends at all. The guy's nuts." That blend of improv and intensity made Sonny some of the most memorable and dangerous screen presence in The Godfather. Number 14. The most expensive shot of the film. James Caan didn't just play Sonny with fury, he went out in a scene that pushed the limits of 1970s filmmaking. Sonny's death at the toll booth was the most expensive sequence in The Godfather. The production used over 100 squibs on Caan alone, and even more on the car and surrounding set. Some reports say he wore as many as 147. Each one exploded with enough force to leave him bruised. Caan later said, "I felt like I was being punched all over." It took 3 days to shoot and cost over $100,000, a massive budget for a single scene at the time. But the result? One of the most unforgettable and brutally realistic death scenes ever put on film. Number 15. One star took this movie way too personally. The Godfather's connection to real-life drama didn't end with the mafia. It reached Hollywood royalty. Frank Sinatra was convinced that Johnny Fontane, the flashy, mob-connected singer in Mario Puzo's novel, was based on him. He was furious and had a front-row perspective on the story's buzz and backlash. According to Mario Puzo and producer Albert Ruddy, the two were confronted by Sinatra in person at Chasen's restaurant in Los Angeles. Ruddy reportedly tried to keep Puzo away, but when Sinatra recognized the author, things got confrontational fast. Sinatra shouted insults, called Puzo a pimp, threatened violence, and yelled, "Choke. Go ahead and choke." The encounter didn't turn physical, but it amounted to real-life mafia-style intimidation from someone with star power. Sinatra reportedly warned Al Martino, the actor eventually cast as Fontaine, not to take the role or risk career destruction in Las Vegas and beyond. There was no lawsuit, no official confrontation, just Hollywood tension in its rawest form, where fiction, fame, and reputation clashed in a restaurant booth. Number 16, just like his character, he got help from the family. Behind the story of Johnny Fontane lies a real-life twist that mirrors the film. Al Martino was originally cast by producer Albert Ruddy to play the role, but when Francis Ford Coppola signed on, he briefly replaced him with Vic Damone, a simmering disconnect between producer and director. Martino didn't go quietly. According to multiple interviews, he turned to his real-life godfather, Russell Bufalino, a powerful Pennsylvania crime boss, to intervene. Bufalino allegedly orchestrated media coverage suggesting Ruddy had granted Martino the part without Coppola's knowledge. Shortly afterward, Vic Damone bowed out, reportedly citing concerns about mafia backlash and low pay. With Damone gone, the role circled back to Martino, echoing his character's journey in the film. Number 17. Fabrizio's death was filmed, then cut. Fabrizio was Michael Corleone's bodyguard in Sicily, the same man who rigged the car bomb that killed Apollonia. In the novel, Michael eventually tracks him down in Buffalo and kills him in revenge. That scene was actually filmed. Michael shoots Fabrizio in a Buffalo pizzeria with a shotgun. Clips and still images circulated in promotional material long ago. But when the final cut was assembled, the entire sequence was removed. Number 18. The horsehead was real. One of cinema's most unforgettable shock moments wasn't special effects. It was real. Francis Ford Coppola had the fake head tested, and it didn't look believable enough. So he sourced a real horse head from a dog food plant, a freshly slaughtered racehorse, and had it brought in frozen to the set. Actor John Marley, playing Jack Woltz, assumed it was prop and only discovered it was real when he saw it in the bed. His horror was genuine. His reaction wasn't acting. It was pure terror captured on film. The result? A scene that still haunts movie lovers decades later, and one that proved Coppola's ruthless vision was nothing if not committed to realism. Number 19. The cat was a stray. That cat in Don Vito's lap at the beginning? It wasn't scripted. It was a stray. Francis Ford Coppola spotted the feline wandering the Paramount lot and, on a whim, placed it in Marlon Brando's arms for the scene. Brando adapted instantly. The cat purred so loudly it started drowning out his dialogue. In post-production, the crew discovered much of his voice track was unusable. They ended up looping, or re-recording, some of his lines because the purring couldn't be removed. Number 20. These two stars were sure the movie would flop. After shooting the opening wedding scene, the one where Michael begins explaining his mafia ties, Al Pacino and Diane Keaton were convinced it was a disaster. Pacino later wrote in his memoir, Sonny Boy, that it was the worst picture ever made, and that both actors believed they had just ruined their careers. When filming wrapped for the day, they returned to Manhattan and got drunk, convinced everything had fallen apart. They were absolutely sure it was over. Of course, nothing could have been further from the truth. The Godfather, released in 1972, became the highest-grossing film of its time, earning $135 million at the box office and holding the record until Jaws surpassed it in 1975. Tell us your favorite Godfather moment and which fact surprised you the most in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, keep your friends close, but your favorite videos closer. Thanks for watching.